the sugya of unplunging a toilet. Or I suppose that's how you say it, plunging a toilet or unplunging a toilet. But there are many tshuvas written about this sugya. It's actually a very, very gishmaka sugya, and it's such an incredible sugya within Bונה. Interesting, one of the most interesting parts of the sugya is the placement of the sugya. We're learning the sugya of Bונה and Siman Shin Yud Gimel, Bונה B'Kelim Shin Yud Daled, Oyel Shin Tes Vav. This seems to be nowhere in the neighborhood. This is in Siman Shin Lamed Vav and Sif Tes. We'll have to see why, maybe. We'll have to see why the placement is over there. Also, we have to try to figure out. But Akapanim, this is where the sugya of unplunging or plunging a toilet comes. And it's the most unique sugya, this sugya. This is a sugya within Bונה, fixing a toilet, and we'll see in a minute, maybe fixing drain pipes, etc. The uniqueness of the sugya is that over here, I have many, many tshuvas. I have over here, Mamish, there's a Tzitz Eliezer I have here, or Letzioins, I have a Debret Sina, I have Menashe Klein, we have a Rav Moshe, we have a Sheva Levi, Mamish, all shitas you can imagine. I have some shitas over here telling me that to plunger a toilet, to unclog a toilet on Shabbos is an Issa D'Oraisa. I have some shitas telling me is an Issa D'Rabbanan. And I have some shitas telling me it's Mutter L'Chatchila. You ever see such a sugya, Rabbi Yisai? A sugya where it's either going to be a Chiv Misa or an Oinik Shabbos Kipshutoi. So we have to try to work together to understand what is it, what's the din when a toilet is broken. And the pashtus is that one would think, I would imagine that, the pashtus a person would have thought is, look, my toilet is a toilet, something got stuck in there, and I'm just taking it out. Something is stuck, and I'm just taking it out. No, is there any difference between that, a cork in a bottle, just taking out the cork from the bottle? So this is definitely a sugya that requires a beer. How could it be that there's someone out there that holds that it's chayiv misa, someone says it's a d'Rabbanan, and somebody else is coming along and saying it's mutter? The starting point of the Gemara is a sugya. As I said, the sugya is a Gemara in Ksubas Daf Samech. The Gemara says, Tanya, Nochem Ish Galia Oimer. Interesting name. Nochem Ish Galia. He was Megala things. Perhaps he was Megala. He revealed broken toilets to us. He was Megala. Sina Sha'alu Boikas Kasin. The words, we have to figure out what those words are in a moment. But the Sina that has had some type of a schmutz, maybe it's some type of a moss or something, some growth inside this pipe. And the pipe was now somewhat stuffed up. It's some type of a drain pipe. It's a shaila in the paiskim, the rishonim. If the drain pipe is more on the ground, if it's on a gutter on the roof, but Al Kapanim, there's some type of a drain pipe over here and it's clogged up. And you come over with your foot on Shabbos, you step on it, you have the trap, and you go and push it down to enable that the water should be able to go through. You seem to like kick out the schmutz and the dirt, but you're only allowed to do this b'tzina, b'Shabbos. You're allowed to do it if no one's looking, and you have nothing to worry about. Says the Gemara, my time. Why is this thing allowed? The Gemara is asking. The Gemara assumes it's us. The Gemara understood it's certainly a misakin of sorts. It's some type of boina b'karka. It's some type of a fixing of the karka, like we spoke last time, fixing in karka, even kolshu, even something that isn't necessarily stuck mamish. We saw last time it's not cemented mamish. That could also go into the parsha of Bain and Seiser. So the Gemara understood why it's awesome, and that you can't do it in a normal fashion before Hesia. But the Gemara says, so why is it mutter? So the Gemara says, mesakin kila'achar yadhu. You're doing some form of tikkun, and you're doing it with your foot. It's not the normal way of drain fixing. If you call to your house a roofer and he starts kicking it with your foot, it's kicking out. It's a not normal way of fixing the drain pipe. It's kilachayat. B'makim seder like Rabbanan. Chazal, weren't geyser this iser d'Rabbanan in a situation of where it's going to be a loss. Over here, it's a loss. Here it's raining on Shabbos, and the water is going everywhere, and it's going to ruin things, and it's damaging, etc. So this is already the springboard for us to understand the toilet. It seems to be something is clogged up. And the Gemara seems to tell me that the only way I'm allowed to unclog this pipe, which is clogged up, is al yedei doing kila'achar yad, some type of a d'Rabbanan. I could fix it kila'achar yad. That's seemingly what the Gemara is saying. I could fix it kila'achar yad. And since I'm allowed to fix it, kalachar yad, the mokem efsid, so now if we would want to apply this to a toilet, I'd say, okay, I guess a toilet let's say you don't have another toilet, then for sure it's in Makim Hefsid. And maybe even if you do have another toilet, but maybe, big family, lots of cholent, fregnished. So the mela, when you put that all together, maybe even 2 toilets is something that's very necessary in Shabbos. Maybe yes, maybe no. So now I'll be allowed to fix it. Bitsina. I guess in the bathroom, that's bitsina. Nobody's looking what's going on in the bathroom, hopefully. Why bitsina? We also have to figure out. It seems to be there's some type of a zilzal Shabbos over here to do it with Hesia. But you put that together with the fixing of the toilet, which seems to be a big tzarech, hefsit, for sure, sinna, for sure. Now, kilach hayad. How would I plunger kilach hayad if I wanted to apply this Gemara kipshutai? So I would take the plunger, I suppose, with my left hand. It's very difficult to plunger with your left hand unless you are a lefty. Then you would take it with your right hand. I'm not suggesting that you put it in your mouth and start plungering like that. But if you do it with your weaker hand, that certainly would be a klach hayad. And l'chayra, somebody learning Pachuv John in the Gemara, that's when it would come out. But I told you a moment ago, some say it's mutter. Some say it's an issa deraisa. Some say it's an issa derabanan. I'm being asked here, what about covered up brias, etc. So let's try and figure out what's taka the pshat. The emes is that right away, like we did last week, we have to be mechalik to vision, kalim, and karka. There's a chayodom in Hilchos Yontif. With the chayodom, you have over here, you have candlesticks behind me, leichters. The chayodom discusses that if you have leichters, if you have wax that's in the lighter, I guess it's negay also Shabbos Chanukah, etc. But he's talking about Yontif because obviously you can't light on Shabbos. But he talks about Yontif. Are you allowed to scoop out the wax from within the lighter? It sounds mamish like our case, right? Sounds like it's a pipe which is clogged up and you want to take it out. It would come out that I have to do it kilach hayad. I have to unclog. You maybe take it with your, take it with your elbow. I don't know how you're going to do it. Take it with your the back of your glasses and unclog the leichter. Yet the Chayodam says in Hilchos Memachik in Yontif, he says if you have wax that melted inside a leichter, the Chayodam says you're allowed to take it out. Okay, he says you have to do it with a knife probably because of muksa. It's tiltul minatzan. This is Shaila according to Rabbi Kiv Eger. Maybe it's muksa b'makim oichel nefesh to have the candles on the table. Okay, under shmuz. But al kapanim, it seems to say in the Chayyim, it's mutter. Why isn't this leichter a broken leichter? Can I put inside the leichter right now another candle? Of course not. Is there anything more broken than a candle that I can't get in a candlestick that I can't a leichter that I can't put in a candle? The chayra, it's a clogged up pipe. The Chayyim says that this is mutter on Yontif. What's the pshat? Like the Chayyim, because that's a kli. Kalim is different. Like we said last time, this would be considered, as far as a kli is concerned, that wouldn't be considered that you made a nekev. The nekev is already there. The hole is already there. And we say, ain't binyan b'kalim. There has to be a much more chashiva, uftu, and result when a person is building b'kalim. When it comes to karka, by karka is more chamer. And by karka, even though over here, I imagine that the wax is tighter and stronger and even maybe more difficult to take off of the leichter than the schmutz that we're dealing with in this drain gutter, in this pipe. But afal pikein, when it comes to karka, we know that we have much bone bekarka kol shu is chayiv. And this is an example of a bone bekarka kol shu chayiv. You have a pipe which is unusable, and it's attached to the ground. You have an unusable pipe which is attached to the ground, and you're making it usable. That's called a bone bekarka, and a karka kol shu is already chayiv. Coming back to the toilet is I hope it's attached to the ground. What's it? A toilet. So we're talking about a toilet which is attached to the house, and something got clogged in the toilet, or who knows what's in there. So now you want to take the plunger to unclog the toilet. It's an open shut case. It's a Gemara in Shabbos, in Ksuvis. This Gemara is brought in Shulchan Aruch Shin Lamed Vav Sif Tes, which definitely has to intrigue us. Why is this Gemara brought in Shin Lamed Vav, which is the halachas of Zareya and Koitzer? Shouldn't it be brought in Bונה and Shin Yud Gimel? HaRav, that's where I'm putting it for the Eilam over here. By the Aguda, we're putting it over here. So over here, the Shulchan Aruch says, mamish, like you're reading, Atziner, Hamekaleach Mayim Nagag. You see, he's learning that it's a drain pipe on the roof. Sha'alu by Kashim, it has certain types of things that grew inside of it, and grass, and seismin, and ma'akvin, and the male you have to go and scrape it off. So Otherwise, it's going to go and spill all over the place. So if you do it with your foot, which is kalach hayad, bit sinha, al yedei shinoi, ein oisiv ragla, makom seder legaz rabban. Okay, again, mistama, who adin, I think a toilet is a gewaltig application. But let's see, let's go slowly. What's the shiloh over here? The chayra is a very big shiloh because we have to understand what's b'klal the Isser. If the Isser would be an Isser deraisa, then it'll be a little bit more of an aggressive shiloh. The regular shiloh would be maybe an Isser derabanan. So perhaps we would have a little bit more leeway to don the shiloh, because if the whole entire shiloh we're dealing with is a derabanan and the kalach hayad and it's a double derabanan, so we might have a little bit more leeway. And like we were being asked before, perhaps there would be a kavod abrius involvement. So what's takad halacha? This halacha, is this an Isser deraisa? When I unclog, well, go back to the Gemara first. When I unclog the pipe, okay, he's doing it with his foot, so it's no matter what, kalach hayad. But let's say he would do it without his foot. What's the din when somebody would go in the normal way and start shoveling out the dirt and the schmutz there? Is that an Isser derabanan of b'nei b'karka, or is it Isser deraisa of b'nei b'karka? The idea being that maybe it's only derabanan because it's not the emes attached. It's something that maybe looks attached. Maybe it ruined the shimush. But in the end of the day, we do see here that there's a pipe. Or no, this is an emistic, a derisidic, a Isser. And that the only reason it's derabanan in our case is because he's doing a kalach hayad, and this could have very, very big nafkaminas. Right? The Shulchan Aruch has a header of pseida, right? And, we do find it's very interesting. The Chazon Ish in Nun Vav Dalet says that this time a very unique halacha over here. Where do we ever find that a Jew in Gantz Shulchan Aruch, the boy says, this is a very, very unique case. Kimat in the Gantz Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Shabbos, in the 102 simanim of Shulchan Aruch, you can count on your hand, less than on your hand, a heter that a Jew can do an Isser derabanan by himself. It's Kimat never. There's an Isser derabanan that we're making. We have derabanan zayidei goyim, shvus de shvus. Over here, all of a sudden, we have a derabanan that we're being makel on. It's a very interesting thing. We're allowing you to do kalach hayad. Rabbi said, could you go over to the wall and turn on the light with your elbow? Okay, or Moshe holds not called the shinur. But could you go and any of the shinuyim, Rabbi said? Am I allowed to, with a fork, smear cream on my body? So you're not a makim chayli and whatever, because never later. So in regular case, can I just take a cream and smear it on my body? Of course not. That's kalach hayad, it's mamreach kalach hayad, and it's an Isser derabanan, it's a gomer. Yeah, but my lips are hurting and whatnot. No such thing. Maybe there's cases of chaylim and babies and whatnot. But stamazoi, it's also. Isser derabanan is also. Isser derabanan b'makim pseida is also. What's this all about? Muksa, you're allowed to move when there's a pseida. That's the whole halacha of muksa. Is you're not allowed to move an item. Even though it's going to get lost. You're not allowed to move muksa. So what's this all of a sudden that we're allowed to do the rabbanans b'magim seder? And it's a very unique halacha. Very unique halacha. The Chazon Ish says this is a unique halacha specifically over here. Whether we'll see soon whether the actual clogheit, the actual clogging in the pipe is a deraisa, or whether it's derabanan. The Chazon Ish says since the person that's unclogging it, he's doing it boifin that it's not nicker, chazal weren't geyser the whole thing, b'makom seder. It's a special halacha, this halacha. But let's try to get to the bottom of this. What exactly is this Isser? Is it a derabanan? Is it not a derabanan? Is it a deraisa? And it's a tremendous nafkamina, because again, the toilet, Rabbi Yisai, I got news for you. I can't unclog my toilet with the left hand. It's very difficult. If this is going to be a shiloh of a deraisa, let's say my comparison is right and the toilet case is exactly congruent to the case of the Shulchan Aruch, to the case of the Gemara. So you're telling me, listen, Kallus, it's a Mefurish Gemara. You can unclog the toilet with your left hand and just do a bitzina. Makim Seder, let's say it's the only toilet in my house, and that's it. That's very nice, Rabbi Yisai, if you're able to do it with your left hand. But sometimes you got to reingehen to the toilet, Rabbi Yisai. Reingehen with the richtige hand. And you have to go in with your right hand. And it's too difficult to unclog. It's too difficult to unclog the toilet with your right hand. So with your left hand. So am I going to be allowed to use my right hand? If we're dealing with a shaila derabanan, unclogging is only an Isser derabanan, so then maybe like we saw before, kavod abrius, so maybe we'll be mekel. But Mashenken, if you're going to tell me that unclogging in general is a deraisa, so the only heter I would potentially give is if you do it with your left hand, because that would be a shinoi, that would be kalach hayad. But Masha'en Kain, if you're going to tell me that unclogging is deraisa, a drabanan, so then maybe we would have a makom to even do it with my good hand, with my right hand, because since the whole Easter is only drabanan, no, maybe the makom kavra Easter weren't goyim. So let's try to understand what is the Easter of the Gemara of the Shulchan Aruch. If it's an Easter deraisa, an Easter drabanan, the Prima Godim in Shinamid Vav, the Aruch HaShulchan in Shinamid Vav, and none less than the Pnei Yeshua. On Daf Samech, they all say it's the Rabbanon. The whole entire din of unclogging is the Rabbanon. The Aruch HaShulchan says, I'll read you his lashon, it's Yivkat and Chofei, Einai Misaknai Biyadav, Ela Beraglav, Hitirulei Rabbanon B'Makim Seda, Ein Kan Chash Melacha D'Oraisa. He's bothered by the question. What is going on here that all of a sudden Chazal were makel that a person can be doing Rabbanans on Shabbos because of Pseida? Where do we ever find such a thing? The truth is, even after the Aruch HaShulchan is still shver. But the Aruch HaShulchan says, we made it into a double Rabbanan. He says, first of all, unclogging your drain pipe is not a deraisa. It's a tikkun balma. Like I explained before, because it's not really that the shmutz is mevatel, the shame of the pipe and the drain pipe legamre. So it's not a real, we still have a pipe, it's just stopped up. So that's called the tikkun drabanan. It's not deraisa, it's not b'nei b'karka. It says tikkun balma. Memela b'makim pseida, they weren't geyser. Therefore, they weren't geyser. Aval shaloi b'makim pseida, kegoyin she'ina doilif, it wouldn't be a pseida, they wouldn't allow this. They wouldn't allow this. And then he says, okay, you got to get out of the Marasayan Shaila and does. But the Aruch HaShulchan and the Prima Godim and the Pnei Yeshua, they all say that it's like a nira kimisakin. Now you appreciate a little bit more the Chazanish. The whole Israel over here is it looks like you're fixing. I'm not really fixing because it's not like I'm making a pipe. There's a pipe that's clogged. All you have to do is take the stuff out. So it looks like I'm fixing. So I guess it's sinna that it doesn't look like I'm fixing, and it's a mokim seda, and you're doing the glaka. Yeah, I don't know. Kuliyai v'ulai, we find the heter of Chazal. If that would be the case, Rabbi Isai, so then we got a lot to talk about. Because now I could say, listen, my toilet is clogged. It's covered up brius. I don't want to have to knock on my neighbor's door. Imagine Rabbi Isai, 2 o'clock in the morning, you wake up, frag nish. You got to go knock on the neighbor's door, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you have to, does it cover up brius? Oh, frag nish. So I'd say, maybe I'd be able to say, the Pnei Yeshua and the Aruch HaShulchan and the Prima Godim tell me in the first place, unclogging, the most it could be is in a Rabbanan. I can't unclog this toilet with my left hand. No, I'll let you use your right hand because the whole thing is Rabbanan. The Rabbanan b'makom kavod abriyas will be able to be mekel. That would be the first side. But Rabbi Isai, the Shisa Shabbos in Koitzer, Ois Sivkat Yudches, and Ois Mem Dalid, in the Tila the David, in Simon Zayin, they bring many Rishonim that learn the din of the Gemara in Suves on clogging a pipe is yes in Issa Deraisa. Yes in Issa Deraisa. And that the Enechanami, the Chazal will only make all of year because you're doing it with a Shinoi, Kalachar Yad. And yes, it's a one Rabbanan, not a double Rabbanan. And it's a unique Chiddush in Hilchos Shabbos that they were makel on this Rabbanan. Why? It's a very big Shaila. But then if that would be the case, we're going to be off Gak Tzuris, because then that if my toilet is the same thing as the pipe, which we'll have to see if we can be mechalik in a moment, but if my toilet is going to be the same thing as a pipe, so then my toilet, unclogging the toilet is deraisa. So maybe if you could use your left hand, that's the Gemara, but to use your right hand, that's deraisa. Deraisa b'makom kavod abriyas, certainly not mekel. What's the raya that the Rishonim hold it's deraisa? To be able to understand the gravity, the magnitude of the problem. Toisis l'chayra in Ksubis and Daf Samech is often mefurish. Toisis de b'maskul memachin seems to say it's deraisa. How do I know? Because Toisis has the kasha. In fact, Toisis in Ksubis, the Gemara says that how do you get rid of the schmutz in the pipe? The Gemara says the heter klachiyad, but make sure you do it b'tzina. Why? Because Marasayin. People are going to be seeing you do this, Marasayin, and they're going to start to fix things and whatnot. For Toisves, whoa. Don't we have a rule in Marasayin that whatever is usher in Marasayin, because of Marasayin, is also usher b'tzina? And we don't say that when something is usher because of Marasayin, it's only usher b'farhasi where people can see. We even usher b'chadrei chadorim because we're afraid that somebody's charayin and someone's going to come inside and he's going to see. And so therefore, there's no din that Marasayin is only a problem to Pharisee. We hold Marasayin is a problem, even Bitsina. So Fraktaisis, what is going on over here? I can understand they were guys at the Drabanan b'Makim Hefsid, but you seem to see from the Gemara that they're concerned with the Marasayin. If you're concerned with the Marasayin, what did it help to do with Bitsina? Because there's no din that Marasayin is only the Pharisee. Marasayin is also Bitsina. As I fact Taisis says a biggest side. In Hilchos Shabbos, Mishabur Paskins is at the end of Siman Shin Aleph, very big aside. Taisa says that the only time that we say Maris Ayin is that Maris Ayin is Aser Bechedrei Chadarim is when the situation is a situation that's a Isser De'oraisa. When you have an Isser De'oraisa, and people are going to see you doing what Al Kapanim is an Isser De'oraisa, even though it's not an Issa D'Oraisa, but it looks like an Issa D'Oraisa. So then we were Geyser Bain B'Pharisee, Bain B'Tzina. But so Taisis, if what you're doing, the most that they're going to see you doing is an Issa D'Rabanan, and then that you're also not doing because Chazal or Mekel, but if the most that they're going to see you doing is an Issa D'Rabanan, so then we are Mechalik and say that it's only Aser B'Pharisee and not B'Tzina. That's a klal that the Mishabura brings Lalacha in Siman Shin Aleph. He says, at least all Marsayins that are only Atu a Drabanan, that the Marsayin is people are going to think you're doing a Drabanan, are only Mutter B'Pharisee. They're not Mutter B'Chedrei Chadarim. This is Negeya. All types of shilas, like the basar b'chalav shilas, the things that look like basar b'chalav and whatnot, and it looks like your mamish eating basar b'chalav. So it could be that if it would only be a basar b'chalav d'Rabbanan and not basar b'chalav d'Oraisa, so then assuming it's not obviously real basar b'chalav, but if it's something that looks like, let's say, chicken and cheese, so that's only going to be d'Rabbanan. So b'tzina it would be mutter, b'Pharisee it would be aser, but b'tzina it would be mutter. Tzina might be called your house, that might call b'tzina. The only people that know about it are the bnei beiso, and I'm going to explain to them what's going on. Now, come on. This is Taisus. Taisus says, why is it that here by a tziner it's only the Rabbanon? Now, if we were writing Taisus, we would say very simple. Lefi, the Prima Godim and the Aruch HaShulchan and the Pnei Yeshua. I'll tell you why it's the Rabbanon, because the entire tikkun of fixing a pipe is only an Issa Rabbanon. It can never be a Deraisa. So that's what Taisus should say. If you learn like the Pnei Yeshua, and if you learn like the Pnei Yeshua, and that the entire Isser of fixing a pipe is only an Isser D'Rabbanan, so then Taisus is very simple. He should say, since the whole Isser is only D'Rabbanan in general of fixing, so therefore they only asked it a B'Tzina. They never asked it B'Pharisee, they never asked it a B'Tzina. You know what Taisus says, Rabbi Say? Taisus says, because since you're doing a Kilachar Yad, therefore it's D'Rabbanan, therefore they only asked it B'Pharisee, not B'Tzina. That means that Taisus is telling us that without the Kilachar Yad, then it's the Raisa. If I say you don't jump to the Kalach Hayad if the entire Pa'ula that he's doing is only the Rabbanan. So some Taisus say the Achreinim, is the like Prima Godim, the like HaRav HaShulchan. It's a big taina. It sounds clear that the Isser Taisus took on of fixing a pipe, a clogged up pipe is a deraisa. The Ran in Shabbos, the is also mafresh like this. The Ran in Shabbos asks a question. He says, over here, you see that Chazal were matter Rabbanans for Pseida. Says Taran, the biggest Pseida in the world is a fire. And the halacha is, it's Mishnayos and Shabbos, assuming there's no Pikuch Nefesh, and today we take on, there usually is Pikuch Nefesh. But the Ran says, that the Mishnayos and Gemaras and Shabbos say that if there's a fire on Shabbos, then you're not allowed to put it out. A Jew is not allowed to put it out. Even Ayidei Goy, you're allowed to be Merabbis and whatnot, all types of Zach and Shain, not for now. But Al Kapanim, you're not allowed to do a D'Rabbanan to put out the fire. What's a D'Rabbanan? Putting out the fire is a D'Rabbanan. And the Gemara says you're not allowed to put out the fire. It's only putting out the fire. It's only Melach Shein Tzrich Legufa, which is not Mitzvah D'Oraisa. That's the sheet of the Ran, the like Rambam. So the Gemara says that you're never allowed to put out a fire on Shabbos unless it's Pekuch Nefesh. It's definitely a Pseida. Shrek the Ran. Why over here do we find by Ksubis Daf Samach that we're allowed to do D'Rabbanans? B'makom Seida. It says over here that you're allowed to go Kalachar Yad and Shtup and fix the tziner. Isn't this a much bigger Pseida to have the house Chas V'Chalila burned down? So why over there didn't we allow you to put out the fire, which would be a Melach Shein Tzrich Legufa and only the Rabbanon B'makom Seida? Okay, so the Ran has a few terutzim over there. The Ran says, one of the terutzim the Ran says, as he says, Shiny Issa D'Rabbanan of a tziner. The Issa D'Rabbanan of the pipe is Kalach Yad, and therefore, the entire tzura of doing something kalach yad is strange, and therefore it's not a chomer d'Rabbanan. It's not such a chomer d'Rabbanan. The action that you're doing is really the same action as a deraisa, is just that you're doing it for a different toyelis than the deraisa. So it's a much more chomerdik maisa. That's the Ran's basic teretz. That kilach yad is a type of derabanan, which is such a weird surah that derabanan, Chazal said, the whole thing is so strange. They weren't geyser b'makom seder. Masha'enke, you have to know when to apply them. Masha'enke, in a fire, is the action you're going to do is a melach she'ein shvicha legufa, which is a very normal Shabbosdik action. It actually looks exactly like the deraisa. It just depends on your kavanah. That they didn't make of a makom seder. That's the Ran's teretz. That's the Ran's teretz. Rabbi Isai, I have a very passionate teretz to answer the Ran's kasha. What's the Ran's kasha b'chlal? The Ran asks a kasha that when it comes to putting out a fire, we weren't makel, and when it comes to unclogging, we were. I'll tell you why, because putting out a fire is one d'Rabbanan. Mashinkin over here is two d'Rabbanans. So on two d'Rabbanans, maybe we're makel, and on one d'Rabbanan, we weren't makel. What do you see Mefurish in the Ran? That obviously the Ran is taking on that over here is one d'Rabbanan, just klach hayad. But the etzim unclogging of a pipe is considered a deraisa, and the only kula is because you did it klach hayad. But if I asked you, Tachlis, unclogging is a deraisa d'Rabbanan, the Ran and Tosfos hold unclogging itself on Shabbos is deraisa when it's in karka, obviously. He says, Imkain, a toilet is the same thing. It's karka, it's clogged, you're unclogging. So what are you doing when you're unclogging your toilet? You're doing a deraisa. So he says, you have many Rishonim, the Ran, the Tosfos, they all seem to say it's deraisa. So he says, to use a plunger on Shabbos is chayiv misa. Because you're dealing with the deraisa. If you're doing your taka with the right way, the Mishnah Halachas, Reb Menashe Klein, in a few tshuvas on this topic. Menashe Klein, Chelik Vav, in the 81st, in the 82nd, in the 83rd tshuva, he has a long correspondence with the Debretzina, with the Ber Moshe, and in all those tshuvas, he says, I'm telling you it's deraisa. The Gemara, the way the Ran and the Tosfos and many Rishonim learn hold that when you're unclogging something, it's an issa deraisa, and therefore you can't say, I'll do it the normal way because it covered abrius. It's an issa deraisa. If you could do it with a shinoi, maybe we could talk. Maybe we could talk. And then they write, not every case is covered abrius. Sometimes it's not covered abrius. Maybe you have a separate toilet. So therefore you won't even have the het of the Gemara. Adkan. Come to gain. The Ber Moshe, the Debretzina Rav, in Chelik Gimel and Siman Ayin. It's a monumentous tshuva, Rabbi Isai. It's a beautiful tshuva. Over there, he says that Ba'atzim, it's mutter gomer. Mutter gomer. It's true, the Rishonim over there might say it's deraisa, and he says our sugya has nothing to do with the sugya of a drain pipe, of a drain gutter, and all these things. Nothing to do. If you have a drain pipe which is clogged up on Shabbos, it is a shayla deraisa, and you can only do a klach hayad with sinna b'makom seder. He says a toilet. What does a toilet have to do? He says, you know what it's like saying? It's like saying, Gewalt, I got to go to the toilet. Gewalt, the seat, the cover is covering the toilet. What should I do? Can I pick up the toilet seat on Shabbos? Can I pick up the toilet cover on Shabbos? That's a steamer also? That's also a blockage. That's also called that it's blocked. He says all it is the pipe is totally intact. The toilet is totally intact. And you're just lifting out. You're not able to reach in your hand. And who wants to Who wants to go in there? So you're using something that your hand can't get there. It's a yad arichta. You're just taking out that thing, which is blocking the toilet. He says, he spoke to a plumber. He writes over there that he spoke to a plumber, and the plumber told him it's like a blind man that can't see. So Mamela, it takes him more time to do the action of Bibu, because over here, you can't get there with your hand. So Mamela, you'll be able to use a plunger. Why not? So he holds it's mutter l'chatchila. You don't even have to do klach hayad. No, the obvious kasha. What's the difference between our case of a pipe and the case of a toilet? So he says, very different. His mahalach is that this is something by the pipe that took over the course of a time. Over the course of a buildup of time, there was leaves and shmutz and everything that goes in your gutters, Rabbi Isai. Over a long course of time, and it got stuck on, and it became a part of the pipe. It became one with the pipe. So therefore, there became one with the pipe over a course of time. So therefore, that's a different story. That's considered one with the karka, like we spoke about. And now you're chiseling a hole in the karka. Menashe Klein says, can't be. You can't say that that's the pshat in the Gemara. Or Menashe Klein says, how can you say that's pshat in the Gemara? Then why in the world did the guy choose to do it on Shabbos? That was Reb Menashe Klein's kasha. Why in the world did he choose on Shabbos to go and all of a sudden start doing the? If it's something that was built up over time, then why in the sudden did he start doing it on Shabbos? No, I'll let the Oilam answer the Shaila. What's the answer? Everybody say? Let's see. No. Takes time to write. What's the answer? Everybody say?
If the Rav wants, I could open everybody's microphone.
Thank you, Rabbi Kahan. Thank you, Rabbi Isai. The answer is because maybe it was the first time it rained was on Shabbos. Rabbi Isai, you know when I was Mechadish this Pshat? Should I tell you when I was Mechadish this Pshat? This Shabbos was the first rain in Yerushalayim. Baruch Hashem, the first rain came. I have lights on my stairs that anytime it rains, it blows the house. The electricity blows the house when it rains on the stairs. The water gets into the lights on the stairs and then it blows the electricity in the house. So I always know before Shabbos when it rains to turn off the lights, but I didn't have enough Buna. And when I say the same title, Mata Levracha, and I didn't realize that it's going to rain tonight on Friday night, and the whole house flew. But don't worry, we had a nice time anyways. My parents were here for Shabbos. So, Baruch Hashem, but what it was, I mechadish, that can happen. It can all of a sudden, the trouble can start because the first rain of the season came on Shabbos. So that's why the guy woke up on Shabbos, because the drain pipe was always clogged up over the course of the entire summer. I don't know what. And then all of a sudden it came one rain and the storm came on Shabbos and now he sees it. Now he knows what's going on. Now he knows the problem. I said, sorry, Zakta Tepetzina, the Ber Moshe, it's done with the Shaila of Shin Lamed Vav. A plunger is mutter on Shabbos. All you're doing is going to where your hand can't go. He says, what kind of ovdin dechayl is it? It's ovdin the toilet. You're just trying to get where your hand can't go. If it happens on Shabbos, it's ovdin the Shabbos. V'shmir Shabbos gilchasa. He has, I'll derech this. A slightly different idea. I'll derech this. Excuse me. Excuse me. The Shmir Shabbos, did I tell it to the Oilam? Yeah, in Parak Yud Beis, in Or Nun Beis, he has a slightly different mahalach. He's talking, let's say you have even like a bone in a sink. You have a bone in a sink. I'll get to that case in a moment, maybe. But you have a bone in a sink. He says, are you going to be allowed to go in there and get it out? So he says, shiny tziner on the kashkashim, because he says over there that it was on the pipe, on the roof. He makes an ukimta of sorts that's on the roof. And he says it got covered up legamre. And it was nisbatel, the whole entire pipe. He says that by us, you can't say that. It's two different heftzes. There's the plumbing system, there's the actual pipe, and this thing is inside the pipe. So he says, he's not borrowed, maybe there's an uvdin dechal. It's a little bit different than the Ber Moshe. The Ber Moshe was saying that it took over time, and it caked on. He's saying not in the good that it was caked on, but that we don't see it anymore. There's so much there that it was nisbatel. And therefore, it just became like one with the roof. So kivyachol, you're opening a pipe. You're opening up, you're chiseling out a hole in a pipe. The pipe of the toilet is distinct. And you have this thing which is there, and you just can't reach it. So it's not something that became a oneness and is totally mevatel the pipe. It's not mevatel the pipe. Shlomo Zalman is a little bit nervous about the aspect of the Ovdin Dechel. So he says maybe only to be meko b'shas chak and tzarech gadol. No, the Maisa, he was talking over there about a sink. Perhaps a toilet is always a tzarech gadol. Yikedan. The Shvisas of Shabbos that I mentioned before in Koitzer, he's time, so he says something very interesting, which is Miyashiv Rabbi said the question that we started with. Why are these halachas in Siman Shin Lamed Vav in Sif Tes? Why isn't it in Shin Yud Gimel by Bונה? He learns that the nidoin of a tziner was talking about that it was like the lashon, kaskasim, some type of moss and some type of grass. It's not like I was saying that it's leaves that got attached. It's some type of moss or grass or something that, you know, how things grow on, even onto metal and, you know, certainly onto wood, certainly onto the wall. And it became mamish attached. It became mamish, Mr. Shem, one day we're going to learn Zareya and Koitzer. And these sugyas Yetz Hashem, and we're going to see that when something is attached, even if it's not mechuber like grass to the ground, but it's attached to certainly to a karka and to a kli, fungus, mushrooms, all these things we have to talk about. But here it became attached. He says, you know what you're over on? You're not over on Bונה b'chlal. He says, I tricked you. The whole sugya is out. And you know what? It's so beautiful. This is why the Shulchan Aruch doesn't bring it in Siman Shin Yud Gimel, because it's not a sugya of Bונה. He says it's not Bונה. You're not making a pipe. You're being over on toilish. You're being over on koitzer. If you go with that malach, you know what? It's taka deraisa. It's taka deraisa. Maybe Tosis and the Ran held it's taka deraisa, but maybe they held it's deraisa not because of Bונה b'chal. Maybe the reason they held it's deraisa was because of toilish. There was something stuck on mamish. But besoi, if that's the case, I said that definitely has nothing to do with a toilet. If you have grass growing in your toilet, Rabbi said, fragnished, it's time to move divas. So besoi, that would be another way that we'd be able to be makel on the toilet. Again, number one, maybe it's no dimyan bichlal, because there was talking about where it was covered over the gamer and it's battle the gamer, and that's why it's a tikkun. And even if it's a tikkun, there could be a tikkun deraisa, whatnot. Or number two, and that has nothing to do with us because there it's not this battle. Here's your toilet, the pipe, and there's something in it. The two are distinct and clear. It's two clear things you just can't see and you just can't reach. Number two, maybe it was caked on the gamre. Mashenkin in our toilet, it's definitely not caked on. When it's caked on, you can hear maybe that's called boina. That's called you're fixing it mamish because it was attached and you're getting rid of that. It's no longer became like a kivyachal, a new pipe. And number three, another reason is Rabbi say maybe this has nothing to do with boina b'chlal. Maybe they al taka faket mamish. It's unclogging is always mutter. To unclog is not an isser. You have a pipe. You have to take out the things from the pipe. The pipe is not a new pipe. You're just cleaning out. That's not called unclogging. That's not called a tikkun. The case of the Gemara. The Gemara is talking about some other isser. It was grown on, so therefore it's toilish. It's sarei. It's such a geshmak malach. It's a problem of koitzer. This is the reason why the Debatziner went that to unclog a toilet is going to be an isser, is going to be mutter gomer on Shabbos, and you don't even have to use a shinoi, and it doesn't even have to be Shazat Chak, Kavod Abrius, Tzimna, anything. You can tell everybody, Rabbi Sai, come down to the toilet. We're taking out the plumpa, the pumpa, whatever the place come over here called, the plunger. So this is number one.
The pimpo.
Pumpa.
But what about the Prima Gado and Mr. Burr brings that it's a fillip pollution? So how does that fit with Mr. Burr brings a Prima Gado which says that it's fillip pollution. So how does that stem with the pshatim?
Right. That will not stem. 100%. I'm just saying a different side, but ain't a chanami. Mr. Burr learned now that it's not talking about that. And it's taka shtickle pella. So what's it doing in Shin Lamed Vav? Shtickle pella taka. Shtickle pella. Now the Maisa, sometimes you open up a sink. You know they have that. First of all, Derech Hagad, that's pashit. You have to take out the actual pipe from under the sink, even though sometimes it's not really attached. You just can like wedge it out. If it would be kalim, it would be mutter. But being that it's karka, it's also gomer mamish deraisa because it was attached to the ground. That became the ground. You know, Rabbi say sometimes you have a drawer in your countertop, and you know it clicks out and it can come out. To do that in Shabbos, Rabbi say that's I'm chayshish from chatas. That is the tzura of the karka. You're going to say it has an easy access and you know has a self-destruct an escape route. So what? They made it easy, so that you should be able to clean there. You should be able to get things there. But avada the tzura of the karka, even though it's not, it's the easiest thing. It comes out with the greatest of ease. We spoke about the windows last week, so here will be the same thing. So you have that YouTube, I don't mean YouTube. I think that's what it's called, the tube view, whatever that thing is, underneath the sink. And it's sometimes it's obvious. It's screws. You know, sometimes it's screwed on. Sometimes it's just like very tight, and you just have to wedge it down. There's no shot in the world to do that on Shabbos in this deraisa. But let's say, just to understand our sugya, let's say you take that down and you see sometimes there are things there that you mamish have to scrape off. They're gooey and juicy and gishmak. That could be in a chanami, something that over time, like we spoke about, maybe that teretz would apply. Maybe Shlomo Zalman would still be makel. We can don this. Now, the toilet, it's usually not the case that something is, it's usually something is stuck. It's baby wipes, it's this, it's that. If a ball would fall into the toilet, and it goes all the way deep down, and you can't get it. You have to get in there, and you know, you would all understand that is not called Bונה. It's something just blocking. It's the pipe is intact and you have something blocking the pipe. So therefore they're taking on these paiskin that it's mutter gomer. The Hilchos Rabbeinu in Kuf Samachay, he says Legabe a sink, he is chayshish from Misak and Mana, and he brings Taka Shin Lamed Vav Sif test. We azaycha to an Igros Moshe on the topic. It's very interesting Igros Moshe. It's in Chelik Dalet Simin Mem Ois Test. He seems to give klalim on the shaila. What's the shaila lemaisa? Are you allowed to unclog? Now, I must tell you, Rav Moshe in the Tshuva here is talking about a sink. That could be a difference. The psichos akir shenistam b'Shabbos shenistam akir a sink in mutter lakachas kipas sheiva plunger vilanakoisa. That is a plunger. Rav Moshe breaks it up into what I understand it the three parts. Rav Moshe says if it happens sometimes, he says that's not called a kilkel. Let's say, this is like yeshiva shematzev. I don't know why everything bad is yeshiva, but yeshiva shematzev, this is how you use the sink. Sometimes the water comes up, you take the plunger, that's how you use it. So there the pshat is, it's not called broken. That's the way you use the item. You're not going to say that's called broken. That's the way you use the item. That's what Moshe seems to say over here. He says, if it's a davar matzi, that's not kilkel. Then it's mutter. That's miyuchad l'kach. It's oimid for that. He says, have a zerakat dochas kelim l'tzarech Shabbos. I think he means that, the pshat is that you're just enabling it to biscuit. No. Then he goes on, he says, if it's not matzui, he says, then it's chayshish. If it's not matzui and all of a sudden you have like a punct one Shabbos and the water level's rising in your sink and fregnished, right? You have to get a boat and you're going to get, a life jacket. He says, even if you wouldn't need the help of a plumber, he says, I think it might be usser. That might be usser. But then he's mechalik. He says it depends. He says, if it's not like kalka, like gamre, and a little bit of water could still go through, so then he's makel that you could do it kilachar yad. But he says if it's like gamre, water can't go through. He said then it's a tikkun mamish, and it's a CS pesach, and it's an iser gomer, and even alidei goy itself. But then he says, the goy you can be makel b'makom tzarech god.
Is it makapatish or b'ina?
He seems to sound like that would be
makapatish.
Abijus lashon. Right, he seems to sound like it would be an Isser Makkah Patish, which I found very mechudesh. The Gam Yishatzu Chlasa Shalika Derech Machlim Nistam Legamri Tikkun Mamish Kasiyas Pesach. Just under Rav Moshe. The only thing is Rav Moshe is talking about karka, so he might be referring to Asiyas Nekev. Asiyas Nekev, we know in a lul Shaltarna Goylim, so maybe that's what Rav Moshe means. The lashon of Rav Moshe is a little bit difficult. These are short chuvas in Rav Moshe, and it is in Chelik Zayin, but Rav Moshe's makel over there al yedei a goy. Now, I must tell you, everybody saying that Adkan Torah Shebichsav, and now Mikan Ve'elach Torah Shebal The Maisa, I heard from Kimat all the Talmidim of Rav Moshe that not that I heard from all the Talmidim, but all the Talmidim that I spoke to from Rav Moshe about the topic, they all said that Rav Moshe was makel to use a plunger. And I don't know. The only thing they said was that Rav Moshe said that maybe if it's something that people think is us, or people think a plunger is us, so it's a davar that, it makes a zilzal of Shabbos, like an Ugdin Dechol. But, what's going on here? In the Tshuva seems to say that Rav Moshe held it usher. Right? So I don't know. I mean, you could say that, maybe Rav Moshe is talking about a toilet. And maybe a toilet is different than a sink. And you can understand that the toilet, number one, has the aspect of the covered up brias, number one. And number two, maybe a toilet, Rav Moshe understood, like we were saying today. A toilet is something that which gets clogged in there is usually not because something is caked on and whatnot. Maybe that's what Rav Moshe was saying. I don't know. The only thing is that there are those that say, the Talmidim Rav Moshe that I spoke to, the nusach was like this. If anybody tells you, Rav Moshe said that you're not allowed to unclog a toilet on Shabbos, tell him I said that Rav Moshe told me it's mutter. Mutter for no problem using a plunger. So I don't know. The only thing is, I don't know how I'm going to read this tshuva. Moshe says it could be an Isagama. I don't know. Maybe it's talking. Moshe is talking like the Oilam asked me before, when you have to get like the snake involved, and that snake. What's the lumdus of the snake? The truth is that I spoke to one plumber. And he told me, don't think the snake is like chiseling and it's cracking things and unsticking things and whatever. He told me the snake is just a long arm and it's reaching places that you can't reach. And sometimes the snake is just taking out baby wipes. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. This is the sugya. Halacha l'maisa. No. What should I tell you? There is a makom to be makel, to use a plunger on Shabbos. Certainly if it is being done with klachar yad, it can be makel. Certainly if it's a minute claw, certainly if it's something you do all the time, that we have Rav Moshe's makel. Certainly there's a makom to be makel and a plunger in the toilet, if even with your right hand, if it's not legamre niskalkel and the water's going through a little bit, no, we could be saimech toilet plus Rav Moshe seem to have a cooler with that. If it's mamish clogged, legamre and dust, and you need to get involved, snakes and dragons and alligators and all types of zaken. No, what should I tell you? To be makel on that shaila that the Ber Moshe would be makel on. There's another shaila about using
brina in general.
Okay.
A guy or kalach yad?
I would prefer a guy. The only thing is the guy is a very hard thing to get because this is a very, very big covenant of brias. To knock on your door, and I got us, man, I don't know what goes on in the city. You go and knock on the door where I come from and say, hi, could you just do me a favor? Come to my toilet a minute, do the plunge, and keep that and unplug. It's a big covenant of brias just to ask the guy to do such a thing. So I don't know.
The supers, though.
They're a super. So that's probably better to use a super. Yeah, and in a case like this, why get involved in the shiloh?
It's so hard to make klachiyad. It's so difficult.
Yeah, it's very hard. You should know before the shear. I just wanted to see what I'm talking about. I do my homework. You guys learn before the shear. Me, I went to the toilet. I took the plunger, right? The toilet's not broken, but you try to do it, you can't do it. Go and I know I'm stronger than most of the chaver here. Not all of you are Shraga Kalluses, but the Maisa, to get in there with the left hand, you have to get it that it creates a suction, and to get in there with the left hand, not so easy. So it's not an easy thing to, especially when you want it to work. We're not talking, I was doing it in a case where it didn't have to work. So it's a very not easy thing. The Maisa, there's definitely a makom to be makel, especially if it's a shvacha. It's not such a major thing going on. But if it's major, ichab moira, even though the Talmidim Rav Moshe say it's mutter, I still have a little bit of fear. If it's major, you get a guy. Drano, I see it's interesting. I see that there's a shiloh. The shiloh in Drano is a little bit of an interesting shiloh. It's a shiloh also of moiled. You're taking that which is caked on, and what it does is it seems to turn it into a liquid. This is not so pashut to me that it should be aser. Not so pashut to me that this should be aser. It's very interesting. The Abiyah Omer, who's machmar on the plunger, you have to figure this one out. In Chelekei, in Islam and Gimel, in Siman Lamed Gimel, Nice Gimel, he's makel on the Drano. I'll just read you Bekitzer, because there it's Arichas, and the Alkut Yosef, his son, in Shinyan Yudaleh Chavav, Mutter Lishpoich Shamayim Chamim, he's talking about hot water. Drano, same type of azach. Shem Yesh Patziner Shal Kir Shumin Karesh. Let's say you have schmutz in the sink. That's where it's more negaya. It's talking about in the sink that it's oil and schmutz that has been caked on and has been congealed. And you're allowed to pour a makiv is rimas hamayim lachutz, and it's gonna turn into a liquid. It's a solid that will turn into a liquid. The yuchla hamayim lizroim kedarka chutz, and that might have to do with the Sephardi shitas, the gabe moilid, which is a little bit beyond the scope of our sugya. Now, the Maisa, I see from the clock that I have about 5 minutes left. So we thought the sugya of toilets, I think it's we unclogged it. But just for one moment, I just want to talk about one other shaila, the gabe tikkun karka, which is interesting shaila, which comes up especially in the winter months. Is sometimes you have an icy path. And an icy path is definitely dangerous. I mean, we all know stories, and halavai there won't be more. An icy path is I don't have to say for an older person. For a young person, it's also for an older person. From my age up, it's a problem. So a person can slip. It's very dangerous. So he wants to put salt on. He wants to put, sometimes in Eretz Yisrael, when you have this, you don't have salt because it doesn't usually snow. So sometimes people want to they have like sand they want to put on. Okay, how do you have sand that wasn't muksa? So let's say it's a sandbox. So therefore, before Shabbos, it was miyuchad anyways to play with, etc. So would you be allowed on Shabbos to put it on an icy path to prevent the person from slipping? This is a sugya taka in Shin Yud Gimel. It's taka Gemara. It's based on a Gemara. In Shin Yud Gimel Sif Yud, this I didn't give my Mekaymis on because I didn't expect to finish the sugya with a little bit extra time. But for 2 minutes, we have 2 minutes. I'll just speak it out to the Oilam. Your Imam Mekaymis will be the Shin Yud Gimel Sif Yud. Over there's a Gemara basically in Erevin that discusses about Boiskin Melech Agabe Akevas. Over there on the ramp to get up to the Mizbeach, sometimes it got oily and schmutzig and it was very slippery, the ramp. So it says over there, you got to put salt on it. The Gemara says, B'mikdash you're allowed, but not b'Medina. You can't do it something that's a shvus, and they only make on the base of Mikdash. Or a minute we asked the kasha, if you have that the land was muddy and schmutzig, so you're allowed to take their tevin, some type of straw and whatnot, and put it over the dirt. So you see, you are allowed to cover the ground. So why can't I put salt, some type of a salt, to make it that I'm not going to slip? So Gemara answers basically it depends if you're mavatal or not mavatal. The Gemara gets involved in the chol. But the basic idea is the Gemara is saying the straw, you're not going to mavatal, you're not going to leave it there. Our Yisoid, we don't see it becoming one with the karka because everybody realizes this is not going to last. He's going to remove the tevin, I guess, for his animal to eat or whatever. The animal's going to eat it. But the salt, it's just going to disintegrate there and remain there. Now, this is the sugya. There's a lot over here, Abaisai. I just want to talk about one specific thing. Can I take salt and put it on ice on Shabbos? So the truth is, mitzad the salt that the Oilam uses, that salt shiloh that the Oilam dons is a moiled shiloh. The Oilam, when they don the shiloh about making the ice melt and whatever, that's a moiled shiloh. And the salt disintegrates with gamre and does not become one with the karka, as opposed to the Gemara over there that the salt kind of remained and became a part of the karka. Not exactly sure what the case is, but our salt just disintegrates. So the only shiloh is moiled. And even if you say it's moiled, it's grama, whatnot, it's at best the Rabbanan. Rabbanan b'makim slipping and has a grabim borrow that you could be makel. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is I saw in the Shmir Shabbos Hilchos in Perichav Gimel in Sifchav Aleph. In Perichav Gimel Sifchav Aleph, and again in Perichav Hey in Sif Yod he writes Mutar lefazer efer or choil. He says you could put dirt on the icy path. Okay, obviously maybe. Either the muksa will have to get rid of the muksa shaila because it's Rabbanon, the makamezik, or maybe the dirt, like I said, was set aside before Shabbos. He knew it was going to snow, he knew it was going to be icy, but he says it's mutter in order to prevent somebody from falling. Now, I'm very bothered by this. Because l'chayra, if I say, what did the Gemara in Erevin say? The Gemara in Erevin said you can't take salt. And that's obviously the type of salt that they had, not what we had, that's going to remain and become one with the karka. 2 reasons. Number one, it becomes one with the karka. Number 2 is it's being misak in the karka. It's making the karka walkable. Now, if I say, I don't know what to tell you. When you take dirt, especially on the roads, depends where, but you have an icy path over here, and you take dirt, or sand or something, and you put it on the ice. You put the dirt on the ice. The chayra, you're fixing the ice. It does not disintegrate, and sometimes it remains there forever. And the Gemara asked the kasha, what's the difference between that and straw? That means the Gemara would have held that straw is also aser. So the Gemara says, no, but straw is not aser because you're not mevatel it there, because you're going to take it away. Your animal's going to eat it. That means anything that I put onto the dirt, which I'm mevatel there, is going to be aser. So the dirt, of course, you're mevatel it there. Nobody's going to take back the dirt afterward. So b'zai, I'm chayshish, it might even be a deraisa. I don't know. I'm chayshish, it might be a deraisa. Because why is it different to the Gemara in Erevin and Daf Kuf Daled that it says mefurish over there? Okay, so there's a shaila if it's deraisa, like I mentioned, but over there it's clear that it's considered a moisif on the binyan. And b'zai, I don't understand why the Shmir Shabbos says that dirt would be mutter, ice. If you have the problem, I do think salt would be mutter. I saw that Nissen Kaplan, he says they asked this question to the Shmir Shabbos in his Dinei B'Nin HaMetzuyin and Aram test. They asked this question, and he says like this as an answer. Shemati the Taretz The bechatzer also litain chol because it's mesakin the chatzer, because that's what you do. Mesakin the chatzer makbiyoi sayid, they offer, it's a tikkun karka. Majenkin in the street, he says it's different. By a chatzer has like a muddy path, it's a dirt path and everything. Who cares? So more dirt, more mud, more whatever, right? So that's why over there you would have maybe left it there. Kamash Malon, you're not mavat. But it says Mashenkin or chayv on a regular road. Nobody wants to have the sand to add on to the chayv. You just don't want to slip. So therefore, it's not called the moisif on the binyan. He says it's like just covering roik. It's like if you have spit and you just cover the roik, it's not called the tikkun. I hear it, everybody say, but it's a very big chiddush. It's a very big chiddush, especially in Eretz Yisrael. A lot of the roads here now, they're paving in a way. My street, for example, is paved in with bricks. The way you make bricks is you just push it, just put them down. When you tile a floor with bricks, you just put them down, you put them in sand, and basically, after one day, it just chops itself. So that means that when you're going to be putting sand on that, so then it's, yes, becoming a part of the karka. It's true, you don't really care, but you know, it's certainly becoming a part of the karka. Afterward, when the ice is going to go away, the sand is going to settle there, and it's going to become one with the karka. So I don't know, unless you say I'm wrong, because maybe the water goes into the drains, and it's, I don't know, it does seem to be a chiddush, but salt could be mekel.